Hare Krishna. Oh dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel, where we've set up an ashram of BBT devotees and ISKCON devotees for the purpose of propagating this sound, the transcendental sound of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is not different than Kṛṣṇa, and to bring a conditioned soul out of conditioned existence. Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Mahima Stotram from Sri Krishna Lila Stava by Srila Sanatana Goswami beautifully glorifies this Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kalidvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Mad Mahadana Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu Sadhutadayin Adini Chochatakara Hanamunchagadachin Mam Premna Rit Katayukspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 11th chapter of the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and Kṛṣṇa has returned to Dvārakā after his adventures in coordinating and executing the battle of Kurukshetra and installing Maharaj Yudhishthira as the emperor of Bharatavarsha, the earth planet. We're starting with the text 32. Kṛṣṇa has just entered the palaces of his queens. The insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens, who were shy, first embraced the Lord in the innermost recesses of their hearts. Then they embraced him visually, and then they sent their sons to embrace him, which is equal to personal embracing. But, O chief amongst the Bhrigus, although they tried to restrain their feelings, they inadvertently shed tears. Purport. Although due to feminine shyness, there were many hindrances to embracing the dear husband, Lord Sri Krishna. The queens performed that act by seeing him, by putting him in the cores of their hearts, and by sending their sons to embrace him. Still, the act remained unfinished, and tears rolled down their cheeks, despite all endeavors to check them. One indirectly embraces the husband by sending the son to embrace him because the son is developed as part of the mother's body. The embrace of the son is not exactly the embrace of husband and wife from the sexual point of view, but the embrace is satisfaction from the affectionate point of view. The embrace of the eyes is more effective in the conjugal relation, and thus, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, there is nothing wrong in such an exchange of feeling between husband and wife. Text 33. Although Lord Sri Krishna was constantly by their sides, as well as exclusively alone, his feet appeared to them to be newer and newer. The goddess of fortune, although by nature always restless and moving, could not quit the Lord's feet. So what woman can be detached from those feet, having once taken shelter of them? Purport. Conditioned living beings are always after the favor of the goddess of fortune, although by nature she is moving from one place to another. In the material world, no one is permanently fortunate, however clever one may be. There have been so many big empires in different parts of the world. There have been so many powerful kings all over the world. And there have been so many fortunate men, but all of them have been liquidated gradually. This is the law of material nature. But spiritually, it is different. According to the Brahma Samhita, the Lord is served very respectfully by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. They are always in a lonely place also with the Lord. But still, the association of the Lord is so inspiringly newer and newer that they cannot quit the Lord for a moment, even though they are by nature very restless and are moving about. The spiritual relation with the Lord is so enlivening and resourceful that no one can leave the company of the Lord once having taken shelter of him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The living beings are by constitution feminine by nature. The male or enjoyer is the Lord, and all the manifestations of his different potencies are feminine by nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings are designated as Para Prakriti, or the superior potency. The material elements are Apara Prakriti, or the inferior potency. Such potencies are always employed for the satisfaction of the employer or the enjoyer. The supreme enjoyer is the Lord himself, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 5:29. The potencies, therefore, when engaged directly in the service of the Lord, revive their natural color, and thus there is no disparity in the relation of the potent and potency. Generally, people engaged in service are always seeking some post under the government or the supreme enjoyer of the state. Since the Lord is the supreme enjoyer of everything, in or outside the universe, it is happiness to be employed by him. Once engaged in the supreme governmental service of the Lord, no living being wishes to be relieved from the engagement. The highest perfection of human life is to seek some employment under the Lord's supreme service. That will make one extremely happy. one need not seek the moving goddess of fortune without the relation of the Lord. Text 34. The Lord was pacified after killing those kings who were burdensome to the earth. They were puffed up with their military strength, their horses, elephants, chariots, infantry, and so on. He himself was not a party in the fight. He simply created hostility between the powerful administrators, and they fought amongst themselves. He was like the wind, which causes friction between bamboos, and so sparks a fire. Purport. As stated above, the living beings are not factual enjoyers of things which are manifested as God's creation. The Lord is the genuine proprietor and enjoyer of everything manifested in His creation. Unfortunately, influenced by the deluding energy, the living beings become false enjoyers under the dictation of the modes of nature. Puffed up by such a false sense of becoming God, the deluded living beings increase their material strength by so many activities, and thus become a burden on the earth, so much so that the earth becomes completely uninhabitable by the sane. This state of affairs is called dharmasya glani, or misuse of the energy of the human being. When such misuse of human energy is prominent, the saner living beings become perturbed by the awkward situation created by the vicious administrators, who are simply burdens on the earth. And the Lord appears by His internal potency just to save the saner section of humanity and to alleviate the burden due to the earthly administrators in different parts of the world. He does not favor any of the unwanted administrators, but by His potent power, He creates hostility between such unwanted administrators, as the air creates fire in the forest by the friction of bamboos. The fire in the forest takes place automatically by the force of the air, and similarly, the hostility between different groups of politicians takes place by the unseen design of the Lord. The unwanted administrators, puffed up by false power and military strength, thus become engaged in fighting amongst themselves over ideological conflicts, and so exhaust themselves of all powers. The history of the world reflects this factual will of the Lord, and it will continue to be enacted until the living beings are attached to the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:14, this fact is very vividly described. There it is said, "The deluding energy is my potency, and thus it is not possible for the dependent living beings to supersede the strength of the material modes. But those who take shelter in me, the personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa, can cross over the gigantic ocean of material energy." This means that no one can establish peace and prosperity in the world by fruitive activities or by speculative philosophy or ideology. The only way is to surrender under the Supreme Lord and thus become free from the illusion of the deluding energy. Unfortunately, persons who are engaged in destructive work are unable to surrender to the personality of Godhead. They are all fools of the first order. They are the lowest of the human species of life. They are robbed of their knowledge, although apparently they seem to be academically educated. They are all of the demoniac mentality, always challenging the supreme power of the Lord. Those who are very materialistic always hankering after material power and strength, are undoubtedly fools of the first order, because they have no information of the living energy, and being ignorant of that supreme spiritual science, they are absorbed in material science, which ends with the end of the material body. They are the lowest of human beings, because the human life is especially meant for re-establishing the lost relation with the Lord, and they miss this opportunity by being engaged in material activities. They are robbed of their knowledge because even after prolonged speculation, they cannot reach to the stage of knowing the personality of Godhead, the summum bonum of everything. And all of them are men of demoniac principle, and they suffer the consequences as did such materialistic heroes as Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kṛṣṇa, and others. Text 35. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa, out of his causeless mercy, appeared on this planet by his internal potency and enjoyed himself amongst competent women as if he were engaging in mundane affairs. Purport. The Lord married and lived like a householder. This is certainly like a mundane affair, but when we learn that he married 16,108 wives and lived with them separately in each and every palace, certainly it is not mundane. Therefore the Lord, living as a householder amongst his competent wives, is never mundane, and his behavior with them is never to be understood as a mundane sex relation. The women who became the wives of the Lord are certainly not ordinary women, because to get the Lord as one's husband is the result of many, many millions of births, tapasya, austerity. When the Lord appears on different lokas or planets, or on this planet of human beings, he displays his transcendental pastimes just to attract the conditioned souls to become his eternal servitors, friends, parents, and lovers, respectively, in the transcendental world, where the Lord eternally reciprocates such exchanges of service. Service is pervertedly represented in the material world and broken untimely, resulting in sad experience. The illusioned living being, conditioned by material nature, cannot understand, out of ignorance, that all our relations here in the mundane world are temporary and full of inebrieties. Such relations cannot help us be happy perpetually, but if the same relation is established with the Lord, then we are transferred to the transcendental world after leaving this material body, and become eternally related with him in the relation we desire. The women amongst whom he lived as their husband are not, therefore, women of this mundane world, but are eternally related with him as transcendental wives, a position which they attained by perfection of devotional service. That is their competency. The Lord is Param Brahma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Conditioned souls seek after perpetual happiness in all places, not only on this earth, but also on other planets throughout the universe, because constitutionally, a spiritual spark as he is, can travel to any part of God's creation. But being conditioned by the material modes, he tries to travel in space by spacecraft, and so fails to reach his destination. The law of gravitation is binding upon him like the shackles of a prisoner, By other processes he can reach anywhere, but even if he reaches the highest planet, he cannot attain that perpetual happiness for which he is searching life after life. When he comes to his senses, however, he seeks after Brahman happiness, knowing it for certain that unlimited happiness which he is seeking is never attainable in the material world. As such, the Supreme Being, Parabrahman, certainly does not seek his happiness anywhere in the material world, nor can his paraphernalia of happiness be found in the material world. He is not impersonal, because he is the leader and Supreme Being amongst innumerable living beings. He cannot be impersonal. He is exactly like us, and he has all the propensities of an individual living being in fullness. He marries exactly like us, but his marriage is neither mundane nor limited by our experience in the conditioned state. His wives, therefore, appear like mundane women, but factually they are all transcendental, liberated souls, perfect manifestations of internal energy. Text 36. Although the queen's beautiful smiles and furtive glances were all spotless and exciting, and although they could conquer Cupid himself by making him give up his bow in frustration, and although even the tolerant Shiva could fall victim to them, still, despite all their magical feats and attractions, they could not agitate the senses of the Lord. Purport. The path of salvation, or the path of going back to Godhead, always forbids the association of women, and the complete Sanatana Dharma, or Varnashram Dharma, scheme forbids or restricts association with women. How then can one be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is addicted to more than 16,000 wives? This question may be relevantly asked. This question may be relevantly raised by inquisitive persons really anxious to know about the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. And to answer such questions, the sages at Naimisharanya have discussed the transcendental character of the Lord in this verse and the following verses. It is clear herein that the feminine attractive features which can conquer Cupid, or even the supermost tolerant Lord Shiva, could not conquer the senses of the Lord. Cupid's business is to invoke mundane lust. The whole universe is moving due to being agitated by Cupid's arrows. The activities of the world are being carried on by the central attraction of male and female. The male is searching after a mate to his liking, and the female is looking after a suitable male. That is the way of material stimulus. And as soon as a male is combined with a female, the material bondage of the living being is at once tightly interlocked by the sex relation. And as a result of this, both the male's and the female's attraction for the illusory energy of activities known as sweet home, motherland, bodily offspring, society, friendship, and accumulation of wealth increases. Thus a false but indefatigable attraction for the temporary material existence, which is full of miseries, is manifest. Therefore, those who are on the path of salvation for going back home, back to Godhead, are especially advised by the scriptural instruction to become free from such paraphernalia of material attraction. And that is possible only by the association of the devotees of the Lord, who are called the Mahatmas. Cupid throws his arrows upon the living beings to make them mad after the opposite sex, and whether the party is actually beautiful or not, Cupid throws his arrows upon the living beings to make them mad after the opposite sex, whether the party is actually beautiful or not. Cupid's provocations are going on even among beastly societies, who are all ugly looking in the estimation of the civilized nations. Thus Cupid's influence is exerted even amongst the ugliest forms, and what to speak of the most perfect beauties. Lord Shiva, who is considered to be most tolerant, was struck by Cupid's arrows when he became mad after the Mohini incarnation of the Lord, and he acknowledged himself to be defeated. Cupid, however, was himself captivated by the grave and exciting dealings of the goddesses of fortune, and he voluntarily gave up his bow and arrows in a spirit of frustration. Such was the beauty and attraction of the queens of Lord Kṛṣṇa, yet they could not disturb the transcendental senses of the Lord. This is because the Lord is all perfect, and thus Atmarama, or self-sufficient. He does not require anyone's extraneous help for his personal satisfaction. Therefore the queens could not satisfy the Lord by their feminine attractiveness, but they satisfied him by their sincere affection and service. Only by unalloyed transcendental loving service could they satisfy the Lord, and the Lord was pleased to treat them as wives in reciprocation. Thus, being satisfied by their unalloyed service only, the Lord reciprocated the service just like a devout husband. Otherwise, he had no business becoming the husband of so many wives. He is the husband of everyone, but to one who accepts him as such, he reciprocates. This unalloyed affection for the Lord is never to be compared to mundane lust. It is purely transcendental. And the grave dealings which the queens displayed in natural feminine ways were also transcendental, because the feelings were expressed out of transcendental ecstasy. It is already explained in the previous verse that the Lord appeared like a mundane husband, but factually, his relation with his wives was transcendental, pure, and unconditioned by the modes of material nature. Text 37. The common, materialistic conditioned souls speculate that the Lord is one of them. Out of their ignorance, they think that the Lord is affected by matter, although he is unattached. Purport. The word abuddha is significant here. Due to ignorance only, the foolish mundane wranglers misunderstand the Supreme Lord and spread their foolish imaginations amongst innocent persons by propaganda. The Supreme Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa is the original primeval personality of Godhead, and when he was personally present before the eyes of everyone, he displayed full-fledged divine potency in every field of activities. As we have already explained in the first verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, he is completely independent to act however he likes, but all his actions are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Only the foolish mundaners misunderstand him, unaware of his eternal form of knowledge and bliss, which is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. His different potencies work in a perfect plan of natural sequence, and thus he does everything by the agency of these potencies, while remaining eternally the supreme, independent. When he descends to the material world, by his causeless mercy upon different living beings, he does so by his own potency. He is not subject to any condition of the material modes of nature. And he descends as he is, originally. The mental speculators misunderstand his position as the Supreme Person, and they consider his impersonal feature as inexplicable Brahman, to be supreme. Such a conception is also the product of conditioned life, because they cannot go beyond their own personal capacity. Therefore, one who considers the Lord on the level of one's limited potency is only a common man. Such a man cannot be convinced that the personality of Godhead is always unaffected by the modes of material nature, just as the sun is always unaffected by infectious matter. The mental speculators compare everything from the standpoint of experimental knowledge of their own selves. Thus, when the Lord is found to act like an ordinary person in matrimonial bondage, they consider him to be like one of them, without considering that the Lord can at once marry 16,000 wives or more. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, they accept one side of the picture while disbelieving the other. This means that due to ignorance only, they always think of Lord Kṛṣṇa as being like themselves and make their own conclusions, which are absurd and unauthentic according to the version of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Text 38. This is the divinity of the personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by the material qualities. Purport. In the Vedas and Vedic literatures, Shruti and Smriti, it is affirmed that in the divinity there is no influence of the material modes. He is simply the transcendental, nirguna witness, the supreme cognizant. The supreme cognizant Hari, or the personality of Godhead, is the transcendental. Oh, I read it properly the first time. Period looked like a comma. Okay, back one line. In the Vedas and Vedic literatures, Shruti and Smriti, it is affirmed that in the divinity there is no influence of the material modes. He is simply the transcendental, nirguna witness, the supreme cognizant. Hari, or the personality of Godhead, is the supreme transcendental person situated beyond the range of material affection. These statements are confirmed even by Acharya Shankar. See footnote to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1918. One may argue that although his relation with the goddesses of fortune may be transcendental, what about his relation with the Yadu dynasty, being born in that family, or his killing the non-believers like Jarasandha and other asuras directly in contact with the modes of material nature? The answer is given here. The divinity of the personality of Godhead is that he is never in contact with the qualities of material nature in any circumstances. Actually, he is in contact with such qualities because he is the ultimate source of everything. Yet, he is above the actions of such qualities. He is known, therefore, as Yogeshwar, or the master of mystic power, or in other words, the all-powerful. Even his learned devotees are not affected by the influence of the material modes. The great 6 Goswamis of Vrndavan all came from greatly rich and aristocratic families, but when they adopted the life of mendicants at Vrndavan, superficially they appeared to be in wretched conditions of life. But factually, they were the richest of all in spiritual values. Such Maha-Bhagavatas, or first-grade devotees, although moving amongst men, are not contaminated by honor or insult, hunger or satisfaction, sleep or wakefulness, which are all resultant actions of the 3 modes of material nature. Similarly, some Mahabhagavatas are engaged in worldly dealings, yet are unaffected. Unless these neutralities of life are there, one cannot be considered situated in transcendence. I'll read that again. Unless these neutralities of life are there, one cannot be considered situated in transcendence. The divinity and his associates are on the same transcendental plane, and their glories are always sanctified by the action of Yogamaya, or the internal potency of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord are always transcendental, even if they are sometimes found to have fallen in their behavior. The Lord emphatically declares in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30 that even if an unalloyed devotee is found to be fallen due to a previous material contamination, he is nevertheless to be accepted as fully transcendental because of his being engaged 100% in the devotional service of the Lord. The Lord protects him always because of his rendering service unto him, and the fallen conditions are to be considered accidental and temporary. They will vanish in no time. And speaking of no time, it's 7:47 already.
How did that happen? Wow.
Just happened. Krishna's internal potency. Krishna's internal potency. All right, we're going to stop our reading tonight. One more verse left. We've been enticed by Shyam Kishore Das Brahmachari, who pointed out that there's only one more verse left, and I will succumb to his allurement and finish this chapter. Thank you to Shyam Kishore. Text 39. The simple and delicate women truly thought that Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, their beloved husband, followed them and was dominated by them. They were unaware of the extent of the glories of their husband, as the atheists are unaware of them as the supreme controller. Purport. Even the transcendental wives of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa did not know completely the unfathomable glories of the Lord. This ignorance is not mundane, because there is some action of the internal potency of the Lord in the exchange of feelings between him and his eternal associates. The Lord exchanges transcendental relations in 5 ways: as proprietor, as master, friend, son, and lover. And in each of these pastimes, he plays fully by the potency of Yogamaya, the internal potency. He plays exactly like an equal friend with the cowherd boys, or even with friends like Arjun. He plays exactly like a son in the presence of Yashoda Mata. He plays exactly like a lover in the presence of the cowherd damsels. And he plays exactly like a husband in the presence of the queens of Dvārakā. Such devotees of the Lord never think of the Lord as the supreme, but think of him exactly as a common friend, a pet son, or a lover or husband, very much dear to heart and soul. That is the relation between the Lord and his transcendental devotees, who act as his associates in the spiritual sky, where there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets. When the Lord descends, he does so along with his entourage to display a complete picture of the transcendental world, where pure love and devotion for the Lord prevail without any mundane tinge of lording it over the creation of the Lord. Such devotees of the Lord are all liberated souls, perfect representations of the marginal or internal potency in complete negation of the influence of the external potency. The wives of Lord Kṛṣṇa were made to forget the immeasurable glories of the Lord by the internal potency, so that there might not be any flaw of exchange. And they took it for granted that the Lord was a hen-pecked husband, always following them in lonely places. In other words, even the personal associates of the Lord do not know him perfectly well. So what do the theist writers or mental speculators know about the transcendental glories of the Lord? The mental speculators present different theses as to his becoming the cause of the creation, the ingredients of the creation, or the material and efficient causes of the creation, and so on. But all this is but partial knowledge about the Lord. Factually, they are as ignorant as the common man. The Lord can be known by the mercy of the Lord only, and by no other means. But since the dealings of the Lord with his wives are based on pure transcendental love and devotion, the wives are all on the transcendental plane without material contamination. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 11th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Entrance into Dvārakā. All glories to Lord Krishna's wives. All glories to Lord Krishna's eternal associates of Dvārakā. And all glories to the pure devotional service of the Lord, which can free us from illusion and ignorance, pain and suffering. Okay, we'll stop here and continue tomorrow with chapter 12. Whoops. And we're just waiting for the saints and sages, the assembled Vaishnavas, to get their reflections together. Hare Krishna.
First up this evening is Vijay Kṛṣṇa Das.
Vijay Kṛṣṇa, first out of the block. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, so nice to be in your association once again.
Hare Krishna, my pleasure. The pleasure is all mine.
And from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna.
Jai Ho Maharaj, all Hare Krishna to everyone. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to his divine grace.
And Sudevi Dasi says Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Dasi. We hope you are well and safe in blissful Krishna consciousness.
And from Vijay Kṛṣṇa Das.
Vijay Krishna, Haribo.
Related to seeking some employment under the Lord's supreme service, my question is, why is it that the preacher is the most dear employee of Lord Krishna?
That is the supreme will of the Lord. As has been explained to us, he is the supreme sentient being. That means he has all of the qualities of a sentient being, but completely, not limitedly. So with that supreme independence, he likes a person who dedicates their life He likes persons who dedicate their lives to bringing the fallen conditioned souls back to Godhead. Because He wants that. He wants that more than anything. There's a nice verse. Can you give me the ninth canto? There's a very nice verse which answers Vijay Kṛṣṇa. Actually, it's a few verses, but I'll just read one. This is Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 63. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said to the Brahmana, who is Durvasa Muni, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my devotees? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. So, the preachers who dedicate their lives exclusively to trying to bring the conditioned souls back to their original consciousness so that they can actually enjoy the association of the Lord in the spiritual world and one another also, are very, very dear to the Lord. In fact, the next verse he says, O best of the Brahmanas, without saintly persons, for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. Such pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next. How can I give up such devotees at any time? And there's wonderful purports underneath those verses that explain exactly the answer to your question. And of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explicitly says that anyone who tries to explain the Bhagavad Gita to others, especially to the devotees, are guaranteed perfection, and there will never be a person more dear to him than them. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I got a little carried away there.
From Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
Jai Guru Maharaj. May the stream of wisdom carry us through our lives all the way home.
Please, and take me with you. Hare Krishna.
From Anandamurti Devi Dasi.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam today. Today I heard that, therefore, the queens could not satisfy the Lord by their feminine attractiveness, but they satisfied him by their sincere affection and service.
Oh, that took the essence out of the whole thing. Very good.
So even in our fallen status, we can try to satisfy the Lord through our devotional service unto the lotus feet of the representative of the Lord. That representative are Srila Prabhupada and you. I would like to continue to be here for serving you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. And thank you for your undying and sincere service attitude. Hare Krishna. It is that service attitude that is most pleasing to Krishna. He won't give himself to someone who has material desires. That's his will. That's his supreme will. Hare Krishna. Yes, Nalnitai. Haribo.
Thank you, Srila Guru Maharaj, for tonight's reading. Please accept my obeisance. All glories to your devotional services. Tonight we heard that to become the spouse of the Lord requires many lifetimes of austerities. Often, however, we hear that devotional service or bhakti cannot be achieved as a result of penance, charity, and other such practices. Would you kindly explain how it works? Thank you.
Yeah, this is talking about devotees who are coming from the material world into that relationship. First of all, it's not talking about the eternal associates, the eternal wives of Kṛṣṇa. So therefore, the implication is that devotees are coming from the conditioned state. And then in the beginning of the conditioned state in devotional service, we practice devotional service. And because the nature of that devotional service is transcendental, we become purified of our material contamination and we become eligible. And because this relationship of wife to Kṛṣṇa in the spiritual world is so elevated, therefore it takes more of that sincere devotional service to achieve than other relationships. All relationships in the spiritual world are one, in the sense that none of them are higher or lower. And whatever our relationship is in the spiritual world is completely satisfying to us. In other words, the friends or the maidservants or whoever is there in the palaces along with the queens aren't thinking, oh, we have to be queens and we're going to do some politics to see if we can't get that position. No, everyone in the spiritual world is equally satisfied. So there's another verse that's talking about the cowherd boys, how they had to acquire lifetimes of piety to be able to play with Kṛṣṇa. So it's not that, how do I say this? In the beginning of that stage, austerities and penances are helpful, and therefore they're to be accepted. But at the end of that stage, then the pure love is what allows them to attain, in that mood, is what allows them to attain that position with Kṛṣṇa. Hare Krishna.
From Daitari Haridas.
Daitari Hari Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for tonight's reading. I really appreciated the point Prabhupada made in one of the purports, that in the material world one renders service so that he can improve his own position by getting some post and becoming more of a controller and enjoyer. The devotees, on the other hand, realize Krishna's factual position as the controller and enjoyer, and therefore experience true happiness in their service to him.
Nice point. You mined the nugget, the gold nugget of that thought. Thank you so much for sharing it and pointing it out to us. Hare Krishna. It's so nice, isn't it, these reflections? When devotees pick up, very salient points. It's so nice. Subarao.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for reading. While you were reading the purport which mentions about the fallacy of sweet home, motherland, and so on, I was thinking of the verse, Dharma Svanushtita Pungsam Vishvaksena Kata Suya Not Notpadayat
Notpadayat yadivatim
Yadivatim
Shama eva ikevalam.
The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Thank you again for reading every day, Maharaj.
Thank you very much for being there and giving your reflections, meaningful reflections. Hare Krishna.
And from Rasanandini Dasi.
Rasanandini, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, and to all the assembled devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada's translations and purports, which saved my life, revived my Krishna consciousness, and continue to do so for whoever hears them.
Hare Krishna. What a wonderful reflection that is. Total gratitude. Yes, Srila Prabhupada came and he told us that he didn't want to come because being in the material world is a drag, no matter who you are. But Krishna said, that's okay. You just go down and write these books, and I'll take care of everything else. Hare Krishna.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati, Haribo.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I have a question. Why is it considered a mistake by Lord Shiva to become attracted to Mohini Murti?
It's the principle. It's the principle. It's a poetic way of Krishna showing even Lord Shiva that he's not transcendental to feminine attraction, even though he's considered to be Dhira. It's Krishna's way of showing him that he's actually superior to Lord Shiva and to the world. But Shiva knows it. But still, it was a very interesting pastime, to say the least, how Lord Shiva responded to the feminine form of Krishna. So although the form was Krishna, it was still female. And Krishna is not female. Therefore, the principle is being expressed through that pastime of the Lord to Lord Shiva and to the rest of the world, actually. Because Lord Shiva is famous as Dhira, unagitated. Hare Krishna.
Dara Nitai says, thank you, Srila Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a great soul or devotee. I'm not even a devotee. I'm aspiring to be a devotee. But I do try to answer the questions based on what I've heard from Srila Prabhupada directly in his purports. And it usually works. Hare Krishna. I'd like to thank everyone for tonight, but especially for being so affectionate and so loyal and dedicated to hearing Srila Prabhupada's books. And I pray that all of you will be able to spread this transcendental taste, which is the taste that's lacking in the material world more than anything. So please do that. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samabheda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic. The glories of the pastimes of Sri Krishna and his ever liberated souls. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.